I'm Johnny with Neopunk FM.
And I'm Jupiter. And today, we're going to be talking about video game soundtracks. It's an understatement to say that video game soundtracks have had a huge impact on our culture. The quality of video game soundtracks nowadays stand toe-to-toe with things like big studio movie soundtracks or chart-topping songs, having come a long way from where they once started. In the decades-long process of the game industry gaining momentum and growing into the unfortunate monster of what it is today, millennials, as well as members of Gen X, were growing up, creating fond memories with the many great video game soundtracks that it created, going on to establish them as classics.
However, while this might be true for the generations before us, there are so many video game soundtracks that are just classic to us Zoomers, yet haven't gotten as much recognition as they deserve. And while some could already point to games like Minecraft or Undertale, we're going to explore some of the less thought of game soundtracks and musical trends from the gaming world that we believe are just as important. Let's take a look.
Skate 3.
Skate 3, released in 2010, is the third game in the Skate trilogy. If millennials had the Tony Hawk Pro Skater series, Skate 3 and the games before it were the defining skating games for Zoomers. And despite Skate 3 having been released almost 14 years ago, there's still a massive following behind this game today. The soundtrack includes punk classics from bands like The Misfits and Agent Orange, but also featured songs from the likes of Animal Collective, Dinosaur Jr., Joy Division, The Pixies, and even MF Doom. Anyone old enough to remember when Joy Division shirts were absolutely everywhere between Tumblr and your local group of high school alt kids can see how much of an impact hearing Joy Division at a young age had for kids like us. And it's clear that the love for the grungy and gazy sounds of bands like Dinosaur Jr. hadn't died, as shoegaze is still alive and well in the underground Zoomer music culture with artists like Fleshwater, Whir, and They Are Gutting a Body of Water. As far as MF Doom, his legacy has only continued to grow in size throughout the eras of internet shitposting. Even within the game's own original soundtrack, it was working to turn kids on to artists that they would have never heard of before, like Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who a lot of you might know from here.
Finally, someone let me out of my cage.
Del was given the opportunity to create original music for Skate 3, allowing his unique 90s West Coast style to color the virtual world around it.
I got a little homie, it's actually my homegirl's son, and he skates, and he plays Skate 2 and Skate 1. I didn't know that like Tony Hawk had been like, it was raw for a minute, but now kids was playing this game. So I checked it out and was like, wow, okay, oh, wow.
It's clear that the Skate team really cared about the music, knowing that it would be a core part of building the right kind of vibes. And while people could say that maybe the reason why it hasn't gotten more recognition is because the genre of skating games became a bit more niche, it's safe to say that Skate 3 and its music will always have a special spot in the hearts of Zoomers.
Silent Hill. The Silent Hill games have always been relatively popular. With a strong millennial fan base who are hungry for even the smallest bit of new Silent Hill content, there's never been a lack of appreciation for Silent Hill on the internet. And surprisingly, without even really trying to work its way into the Zoomer zeitgeist, it's managed to have its soundtrack popularized over the last few years through the help of TikTok. 3 specific uses of its soundtrack pop out in particular: Black Fairy, End of Small Sanctuary. And the last one, while not being something from the soundtrack itself, has found its way into the culture through its use as a sample mixed with other songs: Mary's Letter from Silent Hill 2.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
Black Fairy from Silent Hill 2 is played while the main character of the game, James, explores the fog world. In the game, the fog world is this otherworldly mix of nightmare and reality where the demonic characters of Silent Hill come alive to terrify you. Usually, the memes around this song play off of the feeling of surreal and existential horror it invokes, things that already lend quite well to Zoomer's sense of humor. But if we take a look one game over into Silent Hill 3, we're greeted with something a bit different. The song End of Small Sanctuary plays at the beginning of the game after our protagonist, Heather Mason, wakes up from her nightmare and meets a private detective in a shopping mall.
Heather, I need to speak with you.
The song truly represents what the name expresses, an ending of peace before we dive further into the hellish situations we're about to experience. Outside of the game, the song has gained more of an appreciation for its general early 2000s chill alt-rock sound, which makes sense considering the deeper level of appreciation all things early 2000s have been getting in the past few years. But it's really by looking at Mary's letter from Silent Hill 2 where things get interesting. In the beginning of the game, as our main character James overlooks Silent Hill, we're played this excerpt from the beginning of the letter written by his deceased wife, Mary.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
The letter is meant to have James, as well as the player, believe that even though his wife has passed, maybe there's a chance she's still there in Silent Hill. This is all important for understanding the widespread use of her letter in memes. After a TikTok was uploaded with the audio from Mary's letter mixed with the song Call Me by Italian ambient musician and composer Gigi Masson, it would go on to explode as a sound. As of today, it's standing with over 34,000 TikToks made.
In my restless dreams, I see that town. Silent Hill.
Similar to the letter's use in the game, people have used the sound in memes to express feelings of nostalgia, as well as using it more seriously in core TikToks to express feelings of longing for something that seems impossible to get back. It allows people to express how a part of themselves feels left behind with something that seems like a distant memory, even if it's in an obvious comedic manner. Whether it be through existentialist humor or core memes, the Silent Hill soundtrack has still managed to frighten and resonate with people all these years later. Drum and bass and jungle.
As you might have noticed, we're not talking about a specific video game soundtrack here, but rather a larger trend in the world of video game music that seemingly had a resurgence. If you don't believe me, all it takes is a quick search on YouTube to find dozens of Y2K drum and bass playlists, full of songs from video games that have millions of views. A lot of Zoomers today might be more familiar with the sounds of drum and bass and jungle through artists like Pink Pantheress, Sourcelot, Aphex Twin, and various producers on TikTok.
But there's a whole history of drum and bass and jungle being used throughout games in the 90s and early 2000s that certainly seem to have laid the groundwork for kids learning about these genres. Drum and bass and jungle are genres that root back to the late 80s and early 1990s in the UK. Stemming out of the use of breakbeats and hardcore club tracks, it evolved into music that focused more on the use of sampling drum breaks and a heavy bass line, giving it the appropriate title of drum and bass. Jungle has a similar sound to drum and bass, but its roots are more intertwined with Jamaican dancehall and sound system culture. These genres have always been more popular in the UK, but thanks to producers like Soichi Terada, the artist behind the famous Ape Escape soundtrack for the PS1, as well as Jun Chikuma, who worked on the Bomberman Hero N64 soundtrack. The sound of drum and bass was able to get more recognition in the world of gaming. But the use of electronic music in games didn't just stop with jungle and drum and bass. As time passed, club culture and the gaming world would finally merge together with the game Wipeout 3.
Under the musical direction of Alexander Paul Coe, aka DJ Sasha, the game included licensed music from such electronic acts as Orbital, the Chemical Brothers, and the Propeller Heads. They went so far to tie this game into club culture that PS1s with the game would be set up across clubs in the UK. Funny enough, the marketing for this game had some people believing that the mix of these cultures was too graphic, with the game having a few magazine ads that stirred controversy for their depiction of what seemed like drug overdoses.
However, this never stopped Wipeout's success, and only further proved that there was a space for electronic music in video games. So, why exactly is it that Zoomers are falling in love with drum and bass and experimenting with it in their own music? The cultural obsession with everything from the 2000s and late 90s has been stronger than ever due to Zoomers being fully thrusted into internet culture ever since birth. The internet gave them the chance to be exposed to these sounds with unlimited access to any game through the use of emulators, exposure from Let's Players, as well as a healthy archive of video game soundtracks and drum and bass music on YouTube. It seems like it was only a matter of time till millennials who had nostalgia for these games decided to re-listen to the music that reminded them of so many good times, all for it to be passed on to the Zoomers that came after them. Whether it be through millennials giving their younger siblings their game consoles, or Zoomers first encountering the music through uploads of it on their algorithms, all of it has breathed new life into sounds that otherwise might not have captured their attention.